Skull and Bones, Bilderberg Group, and Bohemian Grove secret societies of the elite. Hello and welcome back to Driftwood Histories. Tonight, our journey takes us away from the dusty crusades and Masonic lodges of old Europe. We drift forward in time, closer to home, into the modern age. We part the velvet curtains of power, not in ancient temples, but in Ivy League crypts, in luxurious, secluded hotels, and deep within the redwood forests of California. We are exploring a different kind of secret society. Not those of warrior monks or philosopher builders, but those of the elite. The presidents, the prime ministers, the titans of industry, the media moguls. The men who, it is whispered, truly run the world. Are these just exclusive clubs for the powerful to network and unwind? Or are they something more? Are they the modern-day Illuminati, the hidden hand that guides our destiny from behind closed doors? So, find your comfortable place once more. Let the noise of the 21st century recede. Close your eyes, and allow the stories to unfold as we pull back the veil on three of the most powerful and enigmatic secret societies of our time. The collegiate and cryptic Skull and Bones, the globally influential Bilderberg Group, and the bizarre, theatrical Bohemian Grove. Our story begins within the hallowed, Gothic walls of one of America's most prestigious universities, where the country's future leaders are chosen before they even graduate. Yale University, an institution whose name is a byword for American power, a hallowed training ground for presidents, Supreme Court justices, CIA directors, and the titans of Wall Street. Its campus in New Haven, Connecticut, is a monument to tradition. Gothic spires pierce the sky. Ivy clings to stone walls, and the weight of centuries seems to settle in the air. But hidden within this bastion of academia, tucked away from the lecture halls and quadrangles, there exists another, more secret Yale, a world of cryptic symbols, arcane rituals, and societies so exclusive, their very existence feels like a conspiracy whispered down the generations. At the very heart of this secret world, at 64 High Street, stands a windowless, foreboding Greco-Egyptian-style building. It is constructed from brown sandstone, with heavy, padlocked iron doors and no nameplate to announce its purpose. Its architecture is severe, imposing, designed to repel curiosity and guard its contents. The locals call it the Tomb, an apt name, for this is the headquarters, the sacred crypt, of the Order of Skull and Bones. Known to its initiated members simply as the Order, and to the mystified outside world as Bones, it is arguably America's most famous, most influential, and most feared secret society. For over 190 years, what happens inside the tomb has been the subject of wild speculation, fueling theories of a homegrown American oligarchy, a shadow government forged in the darkness of a university cellar. The Order was born from a very collegiate form of discontent. In 1832, two Yale seniors, William Huntington Russell and Alphonso Taft, found themselves at odds with the established campus societies. A dispute had erupted within Phi Beta Kappa, then the premier debating society, over the selection of academic awards. Russell and Taft, feeling that the old guard had become stale and compromised, decided to create something new, something more exclusive, more powerful, and more mysterious. Drawing inspiration from the occult and philosophical societies they had encountered or read about in Germany, they founded a new brotherhood. They didn't give it a gentle, scholarly name. They called it the Brotherhood of Death. This morbid title speaks volumes about the society's early aesthetic of fascination with mortality, legacy, and the symbolic power of the end. Their emblem became the now infamous skull and crossbones, resting above the number 322. The meaning of this number is one of the Order's most closely guarded secrets, a cipher that has tantalized researchers for generations. The most compelling theory suggests it refers to the year 322 BC. In that year, the great Athenian orator Demosthenes took his own life, and Athens fell under Macedonian control. For the classically educated founders, this date symbolized the death of democracy and the rise of empire, a moment when a republic gave way to a more powerful, less transparent form of rule. A fitting, if chilling, touchstone for a society of future leaders. Other, less dramatic theories propose that 322 simply signifies that the Order was founded in 1832, and the final 2 indicates it was the second chapter of a German parent organization. The truth, like all things concerning the Order, remains locked inside the tomb. The process of becoming a bonesman begins in the spring of a Yale student's junior year. The ritual is called tapping. It is a piece of public, yet intensely private, campus theater. A senior member of the Order will locate the prospective member, often in a very public space like a library or courtyard, and clap him firmly on the shoulder, intoning the cryptic phrase, "Skull and Bones, do you accept?" This invitation, once extended, is almost never refused. To be tapped for bones is to be marked for life. Each year, 15 and only 15 new members are chosen. Not 14, not 16, 15. This number has remained constant, creating a small, intensely loyal, and ever-growing network. For much of its history, the order was exclusively male and largely white and Protestant. It wasn't until 1992, after a contentious internal struggle, that women were finally admitted. But the profile of its members has remained consistent. They are campus leaders, star athletes, and the children of the powerful. They are the chosen few. And what a choice it is. The alumni list of Skull and Bones is a roll call of the American establishment. 3 United States presidents have been members: William Howard Taft, the son of the founder, George H.W. Bush, and his son, George W. Bush. This created the extraordinary situation in the 2004 presidential election, where both major party candidates, George W. Bush and John Kerry, were members of the same secret society. When journalist Tim Russert pressed them on this during a televised interview, their evasive, almost identical, responses were a rare public glimpse into the powerful code of silence. "It's a secret," Kerry said with a nervous smile. "So secret we can't talk about it," Bush echoed. The network extends far beyond the Oval Office. Supreme Court justices like Potter Stewart, cabinet secretaries like Henry Stimson, who served as Secretary of War during World War II, and influential diplomats like Averell Harriman have all been Bonesmen. The world of intelligence is deeply intertwined with the order. Some even call Skull and Bones a recruiting ground for the CIA. William F. Buckley Jr., the godfather of modern American conservatism, was a member. So was Henry Luce, the man who founded Time, Life, and Fortune magazines, effectively shaping the way America saw itself for half a century. So, what is the purpose of this order? What transforms these 15 ambitious students into a lifelong, loyal brotherhood? What happens inside that windowless tomb? This is where historical fact begins to bleed into the realm of legend and rumor. Our understanding is pieced together from the accounts of the few who have dared to speak, and from leaked internal documents, most notably a trove of papers discovered in the 1970s. The initiation process, which takes place at the end of their junior year, is said to be a deeply psychological and theatrical affair. Upon entering the tomb for the first time, the initiates are known as barbarians. They are led into a dark, lavishly decorated inner sanctum filled with eerie artifacts and morbid decor. There, according to a detailed account published by journalist Ron Rosenbaum, who interviewed several anonymous Bonesmen, a key ritual unfolds. The initiate is told to lie naked in a coffin. In this state of symbolic death, they must recount their entire personal and sexual history to the 15 senior members. This sexual autobiography is not for prurient interest. It is a powerful ritual of confession and bonding. It is an act of stripping away the initiate's old, barbarian identity, and making them completely vulnerable to their new brothers. By entrusting their deepest secrets to the group, an unbreakable bond of intimacy and mutual obligation is forged. After this death, they are reborn into the order. Each new member is given a new name, a Bones name, which they will use for the rest of their lives in their correspondence with other members. Tradition dictates certain names. The member who has the most sexual experience is often dubbed Magog, a name that George H.W. Bush reportedly held. The tallest member is Long Devil. The captain of the football team might be Boaz, a reference to one of the pillars of Solomon's temple. The patriarchs who oversee the order's finances and alumni network are known as Uncle Toby. Life inside the tomb during their senior year is a mix of intellectual debate and strange ritual. They meet twice a week, on Thursdays and Sundays. Dinner is a formal affair, served on fine china. Sometimes, it is rumored, using silverware that once belonged to Adolf Hitler, another piece of the order's macabre collection of historical relics. This collection is the source of the most lurid legends. The most persistent and controversial of these is the claim that the order possesses the skull of Geronimo, the legendary Apache warrior. The story, supported by a letter found in the 1970s, alleges that Prescott Bush, father of George H.W. and grandfather of George W., dug up Geronimo's grave while stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, during World War I. He and a few other Bonesmen are said to have stolen the skull, some bones, and other artifacts, bringing them back to the tomb to be used as a ritual object. In 2009, Geronimo's descendants filed a lawsuit against the order, demanding the return of the remains. The case was eventually dismissed, but the mystery and the accusation linger. But beyond the strange rituals and stolen skulls, what is the true purpose? Is it a conspiracy to rule the world? Proponents of this view see a clear line of influence. They point to the disproportionate number of Bonesmen in key government positions, particularly in the State Department and the CIA during the Cold War. They argue that the order's ethos, a blend of American exceptionalism and a duty to lead, creates a ruling class that operates above public scrutiny. They see the order's network not as a fraternity, but as a silent, self-perpetuating oligarchy. Skeptics, however, offer a more sober analysis. They argue that Skull and Bones is a classic case of confusing correlation with causation. The order doesn't make its members powerful. It selects members who are already on a trajectory to become powerful. By tapping the campus leaders, the top athletes, and the sons of the establishment at one of the world's most elite universities, of course its alumni list will be impressive. The conspiracy, they argue, is not a secret plan hatched in the tomb, but simply the way elite networks have always functioned. It is the power of shared experience, of a sacred bond forged in a crypt, that creates a loyalty stronger than any political party or ideology. A bonesman is expected to help a fellow bonesman. Doors are opened. Calls are answered. It is the ultimate old boys network. Perhaps the most revealing insight comes from a leaked internal document from the 1870s, which describes the order's purpose. It speaks of fitting its members for the duties of life and creating a new world. But this new world seems to be one of personal and moral excellence, not a literal new world order. The goal, at least on paper, is to create leaders who will serve the nation, guided by the values of the brotherhood. Yet, the profound secrecy, the morbid rituals, the concentration of power, it all combines to create an aura of deep and unsettling mystery. Skull and Bones remains a uniquely American enigma. It is a fraternity that seems to worship at the altar of power itself. Its members are chosen, sworn to a silence they rarely break, and then launched into the world to lead, to govern, to shape our lives. They may not be plotting in the shadows of their windowless tomb, but their influence is undeniable. They are the chosen few, the brotherhood of death, the keepers of a secret that has been locked away for nearly 200 years. They are a club whose headquarters has a clock that is, by tradition, always set 5 minutes fast. Because a bonesman, they say, is always ahead of the outside world. From the ivy-clad secrecy of an American university, we now travel across the Atlantic, into the hushed, 5-star hotels of Europe, where a different, more modern, and perhaps even more influential elite gathers. They are not students, but kings, prime ministers, and the titans of global finance. And their meeting is one of the most secretive and powerful gatherings on the planet, the Bilderberg Group. Every year, usually in late spring, a quiet, almost invisible migration takes place. From the capitals of Europe and North America, a select group of approximately 130 of the world's most powerful people disappear from their public schedules. They are heads of state and prime ministers, royalty from the houses of Orange, Windsor, and Bourbon, CEOs of the largest multinational corporations, banking titans from Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank, and the proprietors and editors of the world's most influential media outlets. They converge on a single, luxurious, and impenetrably guarded hotel, somewhere in a secluded corner of the Western world. The location changes each year: a chateau in France, a lakeside resort in Switzerland, a heavily secured hotel in Virginia. But the purpose remains the same: a 3-day, completely off-the-record conference to discuss the future of the world. This is the Bilderberg meeting. There is no press coverage allowed inside. No public statement is ever released. No minutes are ever taken or published. The entire event is conducted under the strict Chatham House rule, a code of conduct originating from the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London. This rule stipulates that participants are free to use the information they receive, but they cannot reveal the identity or affiliation of the speaker, nor that of any other participant. It is a cone of absolute silence, deliberately erected around the global elite. To its organizers and attendees, Bilderberg is simply a private, informal forum for fostering dialogue between Europe and North America. A rare chance for leaders to speak candidly, to debate freely without the pressure of a public audience or the constraints of diplomatic protocol. But to its critics, it is something far more sinister. It is a shadow world government, a secretive cabal where the globalist agenda is set, where wars are planned, where economic policies are decided, and where the course of our lives is determined without our knowledge or our consent. The story of the Bilderberg Group begins in the tense, anxious atmosphere of the post-war world. In the early 1950s, the Cold War was not just a political reality, it was a psychological one. A deep and growing anti-American sentiment was festering in Europe. Many Europeans, weary of war and suspicious of American dominance, felt that the two continents were drifting apart. This widening rift, many feared, was a vulnerability that the Soviet Union would be all too happy to exploit. One man who was particularly concerned was Josef Riedinger, a Polish political exile and a fascinating, Zelig-like figure who moved in the highest circles of European power. Riedinger, a key advocate for European unification, believed that the only way to counter this growing division and the spread of communism was to bring leaders from both sides of the Atlantic together. Not in formal, stuffy diplomatic settings, but in an informal, private, and completely honest environment. He envisioned a place where trust and understanding could be built, away from the glare of the media. He shared his idea with several influential figures, including Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, a charismatic royal with strong international connections, and Paul Ridgkins, the then head of the massive corporation Unilever. The idea gained traction. With the influential backing of Prince Bernhard and the quiet support of figures within the nascent CIA, which saw the group as a useful tool for consolidating the Western Alliance, the first meeting was organized. It took place from May 29th to May 31st, 1954, at the secluded Hotel de Bilderberg in Oosterbeek, Netherlands. It is from this first meeting place that the group takes its unassuming name. That first guest list became the template for all future meetings. It included 50 delegates from 11 Western European countries and 11 Americans. They were a carefully curated mix of politicians, business leaders, prominent financiers, trade union leaders, and academics. The agenda was focused squarely on the great anxieties of the day: the threat of communism, the strengthening of the Atlantic Alliance, NATO, and the promotion of free market capitalism and global trade. The meeting was, by all accounts, a resounding success. The participants found the off-the-record discussions so valuable and enlightening that they unanimously agreed to make it an annual event. A permanent steering committee was formed, with Prince Bernhard appointed as its chairman, a role he would hold for over 2 decades until the Lockheed bribery scandal in 1976 forced his resignation and temporarily halted the meetings for a year. Since then, the group has met every year, a silent fixture in the calendar of the global elite. The locations are always kept secret until just before the event, and the security is immense, often involving local and national police forces, intelligence agencies, and private security details that turn the host hotel into a veritable fortress. The guest list is by invitation only, curated by the steering committee. For decades, the list itself was a secret. However, in response to growing public pressure and the Internet's ability to expose their gatherings, the group has, in recent years, begun publishing the list of attendees and the main topics of discussion on its official website. It is a small concession to the age of transparency, but a significant one. To read through the attendee lists of the past 70 years is to read a roadmap of global power. Future leaders are often invited just before they ascend to the highest offices. Bill Clinton, then the relatively unknown governor of Arkansas, attended in 1991. A year later, he was elected President of the United States. Tony Blair attended in 1993, a year before becoming leader of the Labour Party and 4 years before becoming Prime Minister of the UK. Margaret Thatcher, Angela Merkel, and Emmanuel Macron are all said to have attended before rising to the top. The list of corporate and financial titans is even more staggering. Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, the heads of Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, the CEOs of BP, Shell, and other energy giants, the chairman of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, and Deutsche Bank, the editors and proprietors of The Economist, The Washington Post, and The Wall Street Journal, the heads of the CIA, MI6, and NATO, and, of course, a quiet but consistent presence from the European royal families and the Rockefeller dynasty, with David Rockefeller having been a key figure and longtime attendee until his death. It is precisely this incredible concentration of power, meeting in absolute secrecy, that fuels the conspiracy theories. Critics like the late journalist Jim Tucker, who spent decades camping outside their hotels, or the radio host Alex Jones, have built careers on exposing what they see as Bilderberg's true agenda. They argue that the group is not just a talking shop, but a covert decision-making body. They claim, with varying degrees of evidence, that major global events were first decided, or at least heavily influenced, at Bilderberg meetings. Was the creation of the European Union and the euro single currency, a long-held Bilderberg topic, a product of these meetings? Was the 1973 oil crisis, which dramatically reshaped the global economy, planned or at least anticipated there? Was the 2003 invasion of Iraq given a quiet nod of approval in a Bilderberg conference room? Proponents of this view see Bilderberg as the true, unelected government of the world, pushing a consistent globalist agenda, the creation of a one-world currency, the strengthening of international bodies like the UN and the World Trade Organization, and the gradual erosion of national sovereignty in favor of a global corporate and financial order. The group's defenders, and many of its attendees who have spoken about it after the fact, dismiss these claims as paranoid fantasy. They insist, time and again, that no votes are taken, no policy is decided, and no formal resolutions are ever passed. It is, they argue, simply a forum for high-level discussion. Lord Dennis Healey, a British politician and a co-founder of the group, once gave a candid interview that perfectly captures the nuance. He said, "To say we were striving for a one-world government is exaggerated, but not wholly unfair. We in Bilderberg felt we couldn't go on forever fighting one another for nothing and killing people and rendering millions homeless. So we felt that a single community throughout the world would be a good thing." This is the perspective that is often lost in the noise of conspiracy. The goal may not be a formal, sinister new world order, but a deeply held belief among the global elite that a more integrated, cooperative, and centrally managed world is better, safer, and more prosperous. By bringing these powerful individuals together, Bilderberg creates a shared understanding, a common intellectual framework for how to view the world's problems. When the head of a major bank, a prime minister, and the CEO of a tech giant all leave a meeting having heard the same off-the-record arguments and perspectives on artificial intelligence or trade policy, it naturally leads to a more coordinated, if not explicitly conspired, approach to global affairs. The influence is not through secret edicts, but through the subtle, powerful shaping of elite opinion. The topics discussed at Bilderberg are a mirror of the global anxieties of the time. In the 1950s and 60s, it was the Cold War and the containment of communism. In the 70s, it was the oil shock and the stability of the Middle East. In the 90s, it was globalization and the rise of the internet. In our current century, the agenda is dominated by cybersecurity, the rise of China, the future of AI, climate change, and the populist backlash against the very globalist consensus that Bilderberg helped to build. The secrecy, the organizers argue, is what makes these discussions so uniquely valuable. A head of state can speak with brutal honesty about his or her country's challenges without worrying about a damaging headline the next day. A CEO can speculate on the future of their industry without spooking the stock market. It is, as one attendee described it, a bubble of privacy in a world of constant, unforgiving public scrutiny. But that same privacy is what makes it so deeply suspect to the public. In a functioning democracy, we expect our leaders to be transparent and accountable. The idea that they are having private, unminuted meetings with unelected corporate and financial titans, discussing issues that affect the lives of billions, is inherently unsettling. It creates an undeniable democratic deficit, a sense that the real decisions are being made in rooms we will never see, by people we did not elect. The Bilderberg Group operates at the complex intersection of power, wealth, and influence. It is not a formal organization like the United Nations, nor is it a secret society with mystical rituals and ancient oaths like the Freemasons. It is simply and profoundly a network, a fluid, powerful, and deeply private network of the people who, for better or for worse, are already running the world. They may not be a formal shadow government, but they are, without a doubt, a shadow cabinet, a place where the consensus of the powerful is forged, far from the prying eyes and the listening ears of the public they are meant to serve. The lights of the European hotel dim, the private jets depart, and the world's leaders return to their respective capitals, their minds filled with new perspectives and shared understandings. But our journey into the secrets of the elite is not over. We now travel back across the continent, to a grove of ancient trees in Northern California, where every summer, a different group of powerful men gathers for a ritual that is far more bizarre, more theatrical, and more openly pagan than anything Bilderberg would dare to attempt. Welcome to the Bohemian Grove. The lights of the European hotel have dimmed, the private jets have departed, and the world's leaders have returned to their capitals, minds filled with new perspectives and quiet understandings. But our journey into the secrets of the elite is not over. We now travel back across the continent, leaving the polished corridors of international finance behind. We drift west, to a grove of ancient trees in Northern California, where, every summer, a different group of powerful men gathers for a ritual that is far more bizarre, more theatrical, and more openly pagan than anything the Bilderberg Group would dare to attempt. Welcome to the Bohemian Grove. Deep in the redwood forests of Monte Rio, California, lies a sprawling, 2,700-acre private encampment. To the outside world, it is a place of intense mystery and dark rumor, a supposed hub of occult rituals and political conspiracies. To its members, it is the ultimate private retreat, an exclusive summer camp for some of the world's most powerful men. For 2 weeks every July, they gather here to escape the pressures of public life, to drink, to network, and to participate in rituals that are part theatrical performance, part ancient ceremony, and entirely strange. The Bohemian Club, which owns and operates the Grove, was founded in 1872 in San Francisco. Its original members were a collection of journalists, artists, musicians, and actors. Their motto, "Weaving spiders come not here," was meant to be a literal instruction. The outside world of business, deadlines, and politics, the webs of commerce and obligation, was to be left at the gate. The Grove was to be a place of art, fellowship, and the carefree, anti-establishment Bohemian spirit. That original artistic ethos, however, has evolved significantly. Today, the membership of the Bohemian Club is a who's who of the American conservative and corporate establishment, though it does include members from across the political spectrum. Every Republican U.S. president since Herbert Hoover has been a member. Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford, George H.W. Bush, and George W. Bush have all been Bohemians. The membership roster also includes military contractors, oil barons, media executives, Federal Reserve chairmen, and university presidents. It is a powerful nexus of corporate, financial, and political power, gathered under the silent canopy of 2,000-year-old redwood trees. What happens at the Grove is, by design, a closely guarded secret. The encampment is protected by high-tech security, former Secret Service agents, and a culture of absolute discretion. But occasional leaks, lawsuits from former employees, and a few daring infiltrations have given us a glimpse into its bizarre world. The most famous of these came in the year 2000, when filmmaker and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, with a hidden camera, snuck into the Grove and filmed its most notorious and controversial ritual, the cremation of care. The ceremony takes place on the first Saturday of the encampment, at the edge of a small man-made lake. At one end stands a massive, 40-foot concrete statue of an owl, covered in moss and lichen. The owl, a classical symbol of knowledge, is the Grove's patron saint and central icon. As darkness falls, the ceremony begins. Hooded figures in red, black, and silver robes, resembling druidic priests, conduct a ritualistic performance. An effigy, a crude figure representing dull care, is brought across the lake on a funeral barge. This effigy symbolizes all the worries, deadlines, and moral compromises of the outside world. After a series of incantations, chants, and pyrotechnics, the high priest declares that the flames of the lamp of fellowship will vanquish the enemy, care. The effigy is then set ablaze at the foot of the giant stone owl. As the figure burns, a voiceover from the Owla recording booms across the lake, declaring that once again, midsummer's magic has vanquished care. The ceremony concludes with fireworks and music, officially signaling the start of the 2-week retreat. To the members, this is all a piece of elaborate theatrical camp. It is a tradition, a dramatic way to symbolically shed their worldly responsibilities and kick off their vacation. But to outside observers who have seen the footage, it looks unsettlingly like a pagan ritual. The robed figures, the giant owl deity, the burning effigy, it has all the hallmarks of a mock human sacrifice, performed by the world's most powerful men. The imagery is potent, and it has become the cornerstone of countless conspiracy theories that paint the Grove as a sinister, occult gathering. Beyond this strange opening ceremony, life at the Grove is a curious mix of high-level, off-the-record networking and sophomoric fraternity antics. The 2,000-plus members, who are all male, are housed in over 100 rustic camps scattered throughout the redwood forest. These camps have evocative, boyish names like Mandalay, Caveman, Hillbillies, and Lost Angels. The days are spent on a variety of leisure activities: hiking, skeet shooting, fine dining, and drinking. A lot of drinking. But amidst the revelry, there are also the lakeside talks. These are informal, off-the-record speeches given by high-profile members and guests. Presidents, cabinet secretaries, Nobel laureates, and foreign dignitaries have all given lakeside talks. It was at one such talk in September 1942 that the Manhattan Project, the top-secret plan to build the atomic bomb, was first conceived and planned by figures like physicist Ernest Lawrence. The Grove was, in a very real sense, the birthplace of the nuclear age. The nights at the Grove are given over to even more elaborate performances. There are plays, musical comedies, and concerts, all written, produced, and performed by the members themselves, often in full drag. The most significant of these is the Grove Play, a massive, professional-quality theatrical production with a cast of hundreds, staged in a grand amphitheater. These plays are often allegorical, with themes of heroism, sacrifice, and the triumph of the human spirit. The club's strict all-male policy has been a source of legal and public controversy for decades. While female staff are employed in some capacities, they are generally not allowed into the main areas of the Grove during the encampment. Female guests are permitted on very rare, specific occasions, but the 2-week summer retreat is a bastion of male power. This has led to successful lawsuits and persistent accusations of sexism, fueling the perception of the Grove as a place where powerful men make deals and set agendas that deliberately exclude women from the highest circles of influence. So, is the Bohemian Grove a sinister, pagan cult where the global elite worship a giant stone owl and plot world domination? Or is it just a very exclusive, very strange, and very expensive summer camp for powerful old men who enjoy drinking, putting on plays, and peeing on redwood trees, a tradition that Richard Nixon once famously complained about on his secret White House tapes? The truth, as with all these societies, is likely a fusion of both. The cremation of care is almost certainly just a theatrical tradition, a piece of campy, pseudo-pagan fun, not genuine occultism. But the real-world influence of the Grove is undeniable. When the CEO of a major defense company, a 4-star general, the Secretary of Defense, and a key senator are all relaxing at the same camp, sharing drinks, swapping stories, and listening to informal policy talks away from any public or media scrutiny, it is naive to believe that those informal conversations have no impact on public policy. Like the Bilderberg Group, the power of the Bohemian Grove lies not in formal decisions, but in the subtle and powerful creation of an elite consensus. It is a place where relationships are forged, where trust is built, and where a shared worldview is reinforced through the powerful bonds of fellowship and shared ritual. It is a network that operates on familiarity, a place where the lines between vacation and influence blur completely. The Grove represents the strange intersection of power, ritual, and exclusivity. It is a throwback to an older world of gentlemen's clubs and secret handshakes, but its members are the architects of our modern one. They may claim to be weaving spiders come not here, but the webs of influence spun beneath those ancient, silent redwoods stretch across the globe. They are a society that is secret but in plain sight, powerful, yet dedicated to carefree fun and theatrical nonsense. They are a profound paradox, a piece of living, breathing, and deeply weird history, performed each year by the men who shape our world, under the watchful, silent eyes of a 40-foot stone owl. And so, our journey through the gilded and guarded corridors of modern power comes to a close. We have drifted from the ivy-clad secrecy of an American university to the hushed, five-star hotels of Europe, and finally, into the ancient, whispering redwood forests of California. We have stood outside the windowless walls of the tomb, peered through the heavy security of a Bilderberg hotel, and watched the flicker of firelight on a 40-foot stone owl. We have met three distinct faces of the modern secret society. First, there was Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death, a collegiate order, forged in the Gothic halls of Yale, that takes 15 ambitious young men each year and binds them together for life through morbid ritual and a sacred vow of silence. It is a network of inherited power, a pipeline that has channeled its members into the highest offices of the land, from the White House to the Supreme Court to the central nervous system of American intelligence. It is a secret society that grooms its members for a life of leadership, instilling in them a loyalty to the order that often transcends party, and perhaps even nation. Then, we cross the Atlantic to find the Bilderberg Group, the global shadow cabinet. Not a society with rituals or oaths, but a network of a different kind of fluid, annual gathering of the world's most influential figures in politics, finance, industry, and media. Here, behind closed doors and under the protection of the Chatham House rule, the consensus of the powerful is forged. It is not a place where edicts are written, but where minds are shaped, where the informal conversations between a prime minister, a banking titan, and a tech CEO can subtly and powerfully align the trajectory of global events. And finally, we retreated into the strange, theatrical wilderness of the Bohemian Grove, a summer camp for the establishment, where the captains of industry and the architects of policy shed their worldly cares by burning a symbolic effigy at the foot of a giant owl. It is the place of paradox-off high-level policy talks by day and bizarre, sophomoric plays by night. A place that insists weaving spiders come not here, even as the most intricate webs of influence are spun beneath its ancient redwood canopy. So what do we make of these three distinct worlds? Are they, as their defenders claim, simply private clubs? A fraternity for future leaders? A forum for candid discussion? A rustic retreat for powerful men to unwind? Or are they, as their critics insist, the gears of a single, hidden machine? Are they the three heads of a modern hydra, a global conspiracy working in concert to steer the world towards a predetermined fate? The truth, as is often the case when we drift through these hidden currents, is likely more complex and more subtle than either extreme. There is no credible evidence of a single, monolithic conspiracy connecting the tomb, a Bilderberg hotel, and the Grove into a unified command structure. They have different origins, different traditions, and often different members. But they do share a common currency, influence. And they operate on a common principle: secrecy. What these societies represent is not a formal conspiracy, but the culture of power. A culture that thrives on exclusivity, on private networks, and on the belief that the most important conversations should happen away from the prying eyes of the public. They function as a kind of self-perpetuating ecosystem for the elite. Skull and Bones selects and bonds the future leaders. The Bilderberg Group convenes and aligns the current leaders. And the Bohemian Grove allows them all to relax and reaffirm their shared status, away from the world they govern. Each serves a different function in the life cycle of the establishment. They may not be a secret government, but they create a space where a form of governance, beyond the democratic process, can occur. The policies discussed at Bilderberg are not binding, but they undoubtedly influence the thinking of the very people who return to their countries to write the laws and set the budgets. The lifelong loyalty of a Bonesman to his brothers is not a formal political alliance, but it is a bond that can, and has, shaped decisions made in the highest offices. Perhaps the greatest secret of these societies is not some grand, hidden plot, but the simple, uncomfortable truth that our world is profoundly shaped by private conversations we will never hear, by relationships forged in rooms we will never enter, and by a consensus built among a tiny fraction of the global population. The allure of these stories is not just about the secrets they keep, but about the questions they force us to ask about our own world. Who holds power? How is it wielded? and what happens in the spaces between what is public and what is private. They are a part of the vast, intricate, and often invisible architecture of our time. They are a reminder that history is not always what it seems, and that the most powerful forces are often the ones that operate in silence, behind a veil of tradition, privilege, and carefully guarded secrecy. Thank you for joining me on this voyage with Driftwood Histories. If these stories have stirred your curiosity and soothed your mind, I invite you to subscribe and join our community of fellow travelers. There are many more hidden currents of time for us to explore together, many more veils to gently pull back. Until then, sleep well, question what you see, but do not let the shadows keep you from your rest. May your dreams be filled with a little less conspiracy and a little more peace. Good night.